Why did Jesus breathe on the disciples after his resurrection? This is a question that almost no one asks when reading John 20 verse 22, but it is perhaps one of the most profound in the entire gospel. Imagine the scene. Closed doors, fear in the air, racing hearts, heavy silence. The disciples were hiding, trying to understand everything that had happened. The crucifixion still echoed in their memory. Hope seemed fragile. Then suddenly Jesus appears, alive, resurrected, before them. He could have done anything. He could have given a grand speech. He could have explained every detail of the resurrection. He could have performed yet another impressive miracle. But he does something unexpected, something simple, something silent. Jesus above. At first glance, it seems like a small gesture, almost insignificant, but the meaning of John 20 verse 22 carries immense spiritual weight. Jesus' breath was not a random detail in the narrative. It was intentional. It was full of authority, and it can completely change how you understand the resurrection. Have you ever experienced this? Have you ever read a biblical text several times and suddenly realized that there was something much bigger hidden there? There is a profound symbolism in this moment, a connection that points to the new creation in the Bible and echoes the breath of life in Genesis. Why did Jesus breathe on the disciples? What was he communicating without using words? What you are about to discover may surprise you, because this gesture reveals something about new humanity, the authority of the resurrected Christ, and the true purpose of the resurrection. Stay with me until the end, because what seems like a simple act may actually be the beginning of something much bigger, and we're only just beginning to unravel this mystery. Because when we understand that Jesus' breath may be pointing to a new creation, everything takes on a different dimension. It's not just a curious detail in John 20 verse 22. It's a gesture laden with intention, authority, and purpose. It's as if, in that closed and fearful environment, something entirely new was beginning, not just for the disciples, but for all of humanity. Perhaps you too have experienced moments of closed doors, silence, and uncertainty. And perhaps you are now realizing that God often acts in simple, yet profoundly transformative ways. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below about what has touched you most so far. I really want to know how you perceive this moment of Jesus' breath and what it represents in your spiritual journey. Your experience can strengthen the faith of someone who reads your comment later. If this type of Bible study, which goes beyond the surface and seeks the deeper meaning of Christ's attitudes, is opening your eyes, please like this video. It may seem like a small thing, but your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people with this type of content. When you like, comment, and interact, you help this message about the new creation, the resurrection, and the authority of the resurrected Christ reach places I might never be able to reach on my own. And if you want to continue exploring the gestures, silences, and hidden teachings of Jesus, subscribe to the Jesus Beyond Words channel. This shows that you want to walk together on this journey of discovery, delving into every detail of the scriptures. Because what we are beginning to see here will reveal much deeper layers than we imagine. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because before the breath, there was something that almost no one notices: the silence. It wasn't an irrelevant detail. It was a moment laden with meaning. Try to imagine that room again. Locked doors, insecure gazes, the heavy breathing of men who were still processing fear, guilt, and frustration. They had heard accounts of the resurrection, but their minds still struggled to keep up with what their hearts wanted to believe. And then Jesus is there. He doesn't despair. He doesn't rush the moment. He doesn't react to their anxiety. There is a pause, a dense, almost palpable atmosphere. This silence is not an absence of action. It is mastery. It is authority. In the Gospels, Jesus' gestures are never accidental. Every movement carries intention. Every choice reveals a hidden truth. And here, before any word about mission, spirit, or sending, there is presence. Sometimes God doesn't speak immediately, because what he is going to do is greater than words. This detail changes our spiritual mindset. We live in a generation that wants instant answers, quick decisions, immediate impact. But profound transformation almost always arises in silence. Behind the scenes, in that space where it seems like nothing is happening, but everything is being prepared. The disciples perhaps expected explanations, strategies, grand revelations. Instead, they received presence and pause. There is something powerful in this. Jesus' silence was not empty. It was preparation for something that would redefine identity and purpose. Before the new creation manifested itself, before the gesture that would echo Genesis, there was this moment of serene authority, as if heaven were aligning every detail for a new beginning. And perhaps this speaks directly to your journey. Perhaps your moment of silence isn't abandonment, but preparation. Perhaps what seems like a delay is alignment. If this starts to make sense to you, comment below, "This makes sense to me," because that breath didn't come from nowhere. It carries an ancient, almost primordial echo. Back in the beginning, in Genesis 2 verse 7, God forms man from the dust of the earth and breathes into his nostrils the breath of life. And the text says that man becomes a living soul. It's not just a poetic detail. It's the moment when humanity begins, when dust receives purpose, identity, and direction. Centuries later, in John 20 verse 22, Jesus breathes again. Do you realize the impact of this? The first Adam receives life at the beginning of creation. Now, before disciples marked by fear and guilt, the resurrected Christ breathes on them. John doesn't write this detail by chance. He wants the attentive reader to connect the dots, to see the hidden truth behind the gesture. There is an intentional parallel, an invisible bridge between the Garden of Eden and that room with closed doors. This changes our perspective. It's not just about emotional comfort after the cross. It's not just about restoring the confidence of shaken men. It's about recreation. It's about a new stage in humanity's journey. Jesus wasn't just restoring fearful men. He was initiating a new humanity, a new beginning that redefines mindset, purpose, and decisions. The breath points to transformation, to a new kind of life that is born behind the scenes of the resurrection. And when we understand this, the resurrection ceases to be merely a historical event and becomes a landmark of cosmic impact. Something was restarted there. Something was inaugurated, as if the Creator were saying, history does not end with the fall, it begins again in Christ. If this revelation begins to open your mind to a dimension greater than you imagined, write this down: new creation. There is a detail behind the scenes of the text that completely changes the impact of this scene. The Greek word used in John 20 verse 22 for breathed is nu epsilon phi sigma eta sigma epsilon nu. It is not a common term. It is not a word frequently used in the New Testament. In fact, it is rare, and that alone should raise a red flag in our minds. That same word appears in the Greek translation of Genesis, when God breathes the breath of life into Adam. It's not just a poetic similarity. It's an intentional textual connection. John could have used a simpler verb to describe the act of breathing, but he chooses precisely the one that refers to the moment when humanity was first formed. This is not linguistic coincidence. It's theological intention. It's carefully constructed revelation. When you realize this, everything gains depth. John is writing for readers who knew the scriptures. He knew that this choice would carry meaning. It was as if he were saying, subtly but powerfully, pay attention, something is being recreated here. The same action that marked the beginning of the old creation now marks the beginning of something new. There is a pattern repeating itself, but with an even greater reach. This changes our mindset about the resurrection. It's not just about victory over death. It's about a new beginning, about restoration with eternal impact, about a journey that rises from the dust and arrives at complete transformation. Behind that silent gesture, a hidden truth was being revealed little by little. John is saying, without explicitly saying it, the new creation has begun. And if that specific word was chosen with such care, what else is hidden in that moment that we haven't yet perceived? If this connection strengthens your understanding of what Jesus did there, write this down: a new creation has begun. The breath echoes Genesis, and the chosen word points to recreation, so the resurrection needs to be understood on a much larger level. It wasn't just Jesus coming back to life. It wasn't merely an impressive victory over death. It was the inauguration of a new stage in human history. It was the beginning of something that redefines identity, mentality, and destiny. When the Bible presents Jesus as the last Adam, it reveals a powerful contrast. The first Adam marked the beginning of a humanity scarred by the fall, by misguided decisions, by a progressive disconnection from the Creator. But now, the resurrected Christ emerges as the head of a new, restored humanity. Not just forgiven, restored, reconfigured from within. This changes everything. Do you realize the impact of this? The breath doesn't happen after a strategic speech about mission. It happens before. First comes life, then comes the sending. First comes inner transformation, then come external decisions. This reveals a profound principle that we often ignore in our own journey. Before sending us, Jesus recreates us. Before entrusting a mission, he works behind the scenes on identity. Before demanding impact, he generates life. This also speaks of transferred authority. The environment that was once dominated by fear is now beginning to be filled with purpose. The resurrection doesn't just solve a problem from the past. It inaugurates a future. It doesn't just close a cycle. It opens a path. There is a hidden truth here that challenges our superficial view of faith. Perhaps you have seen the resurrection only as proof of God's power. But what if it is also proof of a new beginning available now? If this perspective broadens your understanding of what it means to live in Christ, right? Life before mission. All of this cannot remain solely within the realm of theory or theological analysis. If the breath symbolizes new creation, then the resurrection is not merely a historical event recorded in the pages of the Bible. It is an invitation, a silent call to real transformation. It is not simply about believing that Jesus conquered death, but about allowing that victory to redefine your identity, your mindset, and your daily decisions. Perhaps, without realizing it, many people still live as part of the old creation, guided by fear, trapped by guilt, limited by past experiences. But if the new humanity began at the moment when the resurrected Christ breathed on the disciples, then there is a hidden truth that needs to be faced. Restoration is not symbolic, it is practical. It affects thoughts, attitudes, choices. It changes internal workings before producing an external impact. Resurrection opens up a new possibility for the journey. It's not just about eternal destiny, but about a transformed present. It's about living with the awareness that something has been restarted within you. This changes how you face closed doors, how you respond to crises, how you interpret silence. The question ceases to be simply, what happened that day? And becomes, what is happening within me now? Are you living as part of the old creation, or the new? This isn't a question meant to generate guilt, but to awaken awareness. Because the same Jesus who breathed on them still brings life where there is fear, doubt, and closed doors. He still works behind the scenes of the soul, aligning identity and purpose. If this reflection resonates with you in any way, write this down. I choose the new life. If you've made it this far, it's because this message has truly resonated with you. And that says a lot about your journey. When we begin to see the details, the behind-the-scenes aspects, the hidden revelations in Jesus' actions, the Bible ceases to be just an ancient text and becomes a living invitation to transformation. If this kind of profound reflection, which connects silence, purpose, and new creation, strengthens your faith and broadens your vision, consider subscribing to the Jesus Beyond Words channel. The idea here is precisely that, to go beyond the obvious, to explore what many people overlook, and to bring to light the truth that transforms mindset and direction. If this message resonated with you personally, write in the comments, "This message was for me." I enjoy reading each response and seeing how this journey is reaching people at different stages of life, but with the same search for meaning. If you felt this connection throughout the video, please leave a like. It shows that this content makes sense and helps spread this message of new life and restored identity even further. And there's a video right here that perfectly complements this topic, further deepening this revelation about Jesus and the details that change everything. Click on it and continue with me there, because this journey still has much more to reveal.